Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech,
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
and welcome back to the Snob OS Show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We want to welcome you back to another week of the show. This is episode 277 of the Snob OS Show. So, as per usual, we want to thank everybody for joining. If you want to be a member of the exclusive community where we get exclusive content, you get to listen to the show early, and you get access to our Discord community, please go to patreon.com/snoboscast. Give us a little something, and in return, you get a little something. So we're going to get started with the show. As per usual, like I said, we start with the lowdown where we talk all things Apple. And it looks like, didn't we have an update last week about some patches? Well, we got another update this week. iOS 17.6.1 came out on Wednesday, and it looks like it fixes a issue that needed to be fixing. So for those who don't know, there's something that Apple came out with that's called advanced data protection. And this patch, iOS 17.6.1, also iPadOS 17.6.1, macOS Sonoma 14.6.1, all came out with updates this week that patch this advanced data protection. Specifically, this 17.6.1 update includes important bug fixes and addresses an issue that prevents enabling or disabling advanced data protection. So apparently there was a bug out there to where somebody could get the phone or log into your iCloud account and actually turn off the advanced data protection on the device. So this patch actually fixes that to where if you get access to somebody's phone or gets access to somebody's iCloud account, they can't enable or turn off that advanced data protection. And basically,
Hmm.
if I remember, that advanced data protection was like if you try to change your password, it puts in that delay to where you can't, even though you change the password, it won't immediately affect all of the important services, your iCloud sharing, your payments and shipping. So you can't change the email address, you can't change credit cards, you can't change bank accounts. You can't do any of those special security things immediately when you turn on and off advanced data protection. So this patch fixed that because what's the point of coming out with advanced data protection
Yeah.
if you can't turn it, if the person who gets your access to your device can easily turn it on or turn it off?
So I was trying to remember is it was a separate thing related to this, right? When I think it was a when if your phone was unlocked and they snatched your phone while it was unlocked, or was that a different one where
I
it
think that's
would
let me let's see. Advanced data protection for iCloud employs end-to-end encryption to provide Apple's highest level of cloud data security.
okay.
Um, Available in US today for members in Alpha Beta. This feature
Yeah,
was
that's not the same one. Yeah, that's not the same one. Because remember, it was like if your phone was unlocked and they swiped your phone and they tried to change stuff, it would lock again, and then you would have to punch in the code again. So, say if my phone was unlocked and I put it down and someone snatched it and it was unlocked, they could go in and try and change the settings or whatever, but it would force them to, I think, re enter like the passcode or the face ID. It was something. I don't think this is the same thing. I think this is something else. I was just
All right.
getting the two because I think they're kind of like similar, but they cover different things. I think it's so
Yeah.
many like
Um. of- Uh. Let me see here. iCloud advanced data protection. iCloud encrypts your data to keep it secure. Advanced data protection uses end-to-end encryption to ensure that the iCloud data types listed here can only be decrypted on your trusted devices, protecting your information even in the case of a data breach in the cloud. And that includes device backup, messages backup, iCloud Drive, any notes that you share via iCloud, any photos you share via iCloud, reminders, Safari bookmarks, Siri shortcuts, voice memos while it passes. So basically, what that is, the advanced data protection is there is special keys in the cloud. So if somebody gets access to your iCloud account, The only way they can access any of that data that I mentioned below is they have to have your device unlocked to decrypt that information in the cloud. So even though that, like for instance, for example, they get your if I stole Nica's iCloud account and I was able to go on my computer and log into her iCloud account and try to access any of that information, I would also have to have one of Nica's devices, whether her Mac, her iPad, her iPhone. If I don't have any of those, I can't decrypt any of that data from the cloud. So that's
Okay.
basically what advanced protection is. And this patch patches that to where people who, if I stole Nika's account, I could just get and turn that
Turn it
off.
off. Yeah.
And so this patch disables people from enabling or disabling that without, again, that end-to-end encryption, which means I need one of Nika's devices in order to decrypt that information.
Yeah, and I did a quick Google search. The thing I was thinking about was called the feature is called stolen device protection.
Yeah, that's what I was
Um,
thinking too. I was
yeah,
thinking
yeah, that's the one it was. And I was like, wait a minute. Is that the same thing? Okay, cool.
All right, all right. So the next thing up, I thought this was an interesting story. Apple did not, and I repeat, did not want Bing on their device. Did not want Bing as a search option for Safari. And I'll read this quote: "The Redmond-based tech giant, via Microsoft, made numerous attempts to make Bing the default for Safari, but according to the antitrust ruling, Apple's SVP of Services, Eddie Q, said that there is no price that Apple could ever offer Apple to preload Bing within Safari." And he goes on to list, the story goes on to list some specific reasons as to why they didn't want to do it. So the first one was Bing's inferior search quality. Number two was Bing's horrible ad monetization. Number three, Google's deal was just too good. So they must have, just offered a blank
They
check.
gave them everything,
Right.
including the kitchen sink.
Right. Number four, Google has better brand recognition. So this is around the time that Google's getting popular. They've developed Google it as a verb.
Mhm,
So Google is pretty much the front runner, and Apple's like, all right, we want to go with the front runner, right? So this all
mhm.
comes out, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but this all comes out as a result of Google losing a major antitrust monopoly case. And as a result of at Google losing that case, all this extra information came out that kind of tied Apple to why they chose Google as the default search on iPhones, iPads, Macs instead of Bing, instead of anything else. And
Mhm.
apparently this was why. And it's just crazy that Eddie Q said there's no amount of money that Microsoft could ever offer us that would make us choose Bing over Safari. So I don't know what that does to the relationship between Apple and Microsoft, because it's kind of been frenemies. I don't know
Mhm.
if that worsens that. What do you think?
So, does anybody use Bing? I don't think so.
Well,
Uh,
I would assume that
there's probably a small contingent that uses Bing,
they
Bing
have you have to want to use Bing in order to use Bing.
to use Bing.
Right. Um what was I going to go with this? There are some power users, Windows 11 power users, that
Okay.
would use Bing. Not because it's better, not because it's got specific feature set, because they are power Windows 11 users
Mhm.
and they want to make sure, I guess you could call it the ecosystem, but I'm not sure what benefits using Bing in conjunction with Windows 11, in
Yeah.
conjunction with a Intel based Windows computer. I don't know what benefits you get from that ecosystem when the rest of everybody, including enterprise, will not necessarily turn off Bing, but they will integrate Google as a default into, being able to
Mhm.
manage the browser. I don't know if many companies that are forcing their employees to use Bing and have added some, device management to Bing.
Yeah.
Everybody does it in Chrome.
Right.
Nobody does it in Safari. So I'll just give you that. No corporations that say, "Hey, you have to use Safari." It's use Google Chrome
Mhm.
And if that blanks out, then put Windows Edge or something on there.
Yeah.
But no Bing.
Yeah, that's all. It's like it's not, I'm sorry, it's just not popular enough. It's kind of like how I think it was Kroger won't allow Apple Pay in their
Mhm.
stores. They wanted to try and force everybody to use Kroger Pay.
Mhm.
They were trying to make fetch happen, and it was like,
Right.
nope, nobody's doing it. And they eventually, I believe they got rid of Kroger Pay, but they didn't add Apple Pay. They were like, well, you don't want to use ours, so we're not going to make it convenient. It's one of those things where they're really trying to push the issue. But if there's no clamor for it or anything like that, and there's a better product, and I
Mhm.
think that's what it comes down to. Google is a better search engine product than
Mhm.
Bing is. Maybe if Microsoft were to put some extra
Effort.
um, effort into the tool,
Mhm.
maybe, but Google has so far outpaced everybody when it comes to search engines. As you mentioned, Google it refers to just searching.
Mhm.
You could use whether you're searching on Edge, whether you're searching on Bing, whether you're searching on Mozilla, whatever you're searching for. When
Mhm.
people say Google it, that's the universal term for search.
Right.
Google equals search. So there's not, you're not going to, Apple wouldn't gain anything by using Bing in this. Not even if they were on par as far as um, the product itself. It's one of
Mhm.
those things where it's not going to it's
Well, maybe
it's
this
not worth the
isn't
half effort.
well, so one of the points was, number 2, number 3, the deal Google's deal is too good. In order to get into a partnership with Microsoft, Apple would need to drop its deal with Google. In an email to Apple CEO Tim Cook, Q said that Apple would jeopardize its revenue if it stopped partnering with Google. Interestingly, Google analyzed how much Microsoft would need to offer Apple to quote unquote outbid Google's current offerings. As it turns
Mhm.
out, Redmond based giant Microsoft would have to pay Apple 122% of Bing's revenue share just to equals Google's 33%
Oh,
revenue
girl.
share. So it would have
Goodbye.
just
Good
it
night. Nobody.
it
No.
would have just been it would have just been too expensive for Microsoft to even match what Google was offering. Again, this comes into play down the road because Google has to do something as far as pay some fines rather, as far as
Mhm.
all of the money that they offered Apple and some of these other companies to be the default search. But at the time, I don't think Microsoft could afford
Yeah.
it.
Microsoft, just hold this L when it comes to Bing. Just
Right.
just eat
Yeah.
it, friend. It's not worth it for you.
Right, right. All right, next story I had up. We talked about Ohio getting the ability to add their driver's license to Apple Wallet.
Mhm.
Seems like California is up next. Californians using iPhones and Apple Watches will soon be able to add their driver's licenses and state IDs to the Wallet app on both devices. The news comes as landing pages have been discovered on the California State Government DMV website explaining the feature to Californians. So, as useless as these digital driver's licenses are,
Right
states are
now.
moving right now states are moving forward with adding digital IDs. I think the story, or I read somewhere else that a couple other states are thinking about doing it. um Connecticut, Hawaii, Iowa, Kentucky, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Utah. So I just wanted to get your opinion on whether or not this is a good thing right now, or if this is purely setting up for the future. Because like right now, like I mentioned, I've had my Georgia driver's license on my Apple Wallet for a little over a year, have not used it one time.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a setup for what's to come. And I think it's smart that they're rolling it out, I guess, incrementally, because, who knows, tomorrow the government could say, hey, we got this thing, everybody has to use it, and this is what you have to use. And it's
Right.
one of those things where it's better to be better to have it and not need it than to
Mhm.
need it and not have it. And I'm
Right.
really surprised that California is this quote unquote late into the game,
Right.
because they're usually kind of early adopters on this tech stuff. So
Well,
I'm
I think
surprised.
what California and a couple other states tried to do was come up with their own quote unquote digital ID and use their
Mm.
own app and use their own interface and build the infrastructure out themselves. But then they were like, this is too much work. This costs too
This
much
costs too
money.
much money.
Apple's
Somebody's
already
already doing it.
Yeah, right. Somebody's already doing it. Let's just integrate with them. I
Yeah.
think that's what California and a couple of these other states
Yeah.
tried first. They tried to do their own thing. But again, the problem with that is if I'm going vacation and I go down to Florida and Georgia's doing this thing and Florida's doing that thing, and I go down expecting it to work and it
Work the
don't.
way you think it works or
Right, right.
supposed
Or
to. Yeah.
work the way it works in Georgia.
Mm.
I'm expecting it to work the way it works down in Florida as well, and I get a rude awakening, I may just ditch it all together. So,
Yeah.
but states' rights and, some of these states, instead of just coming up collaborating and making
The
one system.
continuity of it all. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. DM drivers to get your driver's license or doing DMV stuff from state
Yeah.
to state varies already. So it's just
Yeah.
like it makes sense for them to try to do their own thing, but they must have
Yeah.
found out quick, fast, in a hurry. It ain't that easy and it ain't that cheap.
Nope. Especially when someone's already done it for you.
Right, right. They've already done everything. All right, so moving along, the last story that I had in the lowdown is the Super Drive. For those who don't know, when the MacBooks started ditching the optical drive to where you could actually press the button and pop out the little CD tray and put a CD or a DVD in there.
Mhm.
Once Apple started pulling those out of the MacBooks to make them thinner, to make them lighter, to make them cheaper, Apple would sell this accessory called a super drive. And that way, if you needed to watch DVDs, listen to CDs on your Mac, you could buy this accessory,
Install software.
install software because it wasn't as prominent as everything is cloud and everything is downloadable right now. But
Streaming.
back
Yeah.
then, back then there wasn't a bunch of streaming. People still had to buy things. People still had to buy movies. I remember the painstaking process of buying a DVD and trying to convert it to a digital version. I mean, I had to jump through so many hoops, but eventually you get it. But I had to use that super drive in order to do it. And as a matter of fact, I still have mine. What I did was back in the day when I had my MacBook Pro, I actually opened up my MacBook Pro, took out the optical drive, and put in an
The
additional
super
hard
drive.
drive in their place. So I
Oh, in
had
the bag. Gotcha.
inside my MacBook. So on one of my MacBooks, I had two hard drives that I could go back in between. I took the optical drive out and I bought an enclosure that then had to plug in via two USBs. And that's how I keep, and I still have it, right? Because
Mhm.
I can't get rid of electronics. I can get rid of everything else. Two things I can't
Yeah.
get rid of is boxes
Yeah.
and electronics, cables, all that stuff. So I still have that drive back there, and I actually used it last year. There was a specific scene in me and my wife's wedding
Mhm.
that I had not digitized, and I was looking for this scene. I couldn't find it on my home server because I think I digitized everything except that little part, and I needed that part for I think for something on Facebook. So I was like, oh man, how am I going to do this? So I had to go dig into my in my basement. I had to dig into my stuff and
Dig into
pulled
the
out that
crates.
drive. But what the problem was, I had to. It takes this drive I had was cheap, and
Mm.
it takes two USB A slots in order to power this thing up. And I've got this MacBook here that has no USB
No,
A ports. So I
none.
had to I had to find a dongle and I had to do a whole bunch of work.
Yeah.
But eventually I got it on there. So what I've been looking for is I've been looking at buying a super drive enclosure to put it in that's
Mm.
USB-C. So I only have one USB-C port coming out the back that I can plug into my Mac. But all the way around the world to say Apple has finally sold out of their last super drives. If you go to the Apple website and try to purchase it, you'll get a message that says this is sold out. So just wanted to pour some liquor out for the
Yeah.
super
Pour
drive
one out for
because
the homie.
yeah, for as of right now, you cannot purchase that Apple USB-C USB super drive from Apple. Now there may be some places that you can get it if in the UK. Stock remains available on some of Apple's regional stores, such as the UK, and the USB super drive can still be found elsewhere online at merchants like Amazon. But bear in mind, you'll need a USB-A to USB-C adapter, which is what I would need in order to use a modern MacBook. Also, it doesn't play Blu-ray discs. Here's how Apple
Mhm.
describes a product, whether you yada 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 yada. So there's still ways to do it, but you're still going to, like in my case, you're going to buy a bunch of adapters, or I think on Amazon, like I mentioned, if you have a super drive laying around, which I don't see why you would. I just did it because I wanted to have the 2 hard drives, and I just never got rid of mine. But
Mhm.
so if you wanted to have a USB super drive, you probably have to buy um, a USB A super drive, and then you have to buy a USB C adapter, which is what I'll
Mm.
have to do for mine. I'll have to buy an enclosure, and I think I've seen them for like $60, which is why I haven't bought one yet. And it's like I ain't paying $70 for something I may use once every 5 years.
Yeah. It just it when I saw this story and I think about it, I think back to the big controversy with Apple when they did the smashing of all of the things to talk
Hmm.
about the thinness of the iPad Pro, the new
Hmm.
iPad Pro. And it's one of those things where, this is another burial,
Hmm.
for lack of a
Hmm.
better word, for the way things used to be. It's, pushing us further and further away from physical media and more towards streaming, cloud, um, types of tools and consumption of media. So
Yep, yep. And
another one
since
bites the dust.
yep, and I don't have any outside of our wedding DVDs that I mean, for sentimental reasons, I won't get rid of. And it actually came in handy, right? But outside of
Mhm.
those, I don't have any DVDs or any sort of legacy software that would require a super drive. But I mean, like I said, I'm a hoarder when it comes to electronics. As you can see behind me, I got all these boxes. I can't get rid of boxes. I can't get rid of electronics, and I certainly can't get rid of boxes for electronics. So,
Right. It's just the big circle.
right, right. All right, that's going to do it for the lowdown. We're going to move into second string, and like I mentioned at the top, it comes to find out that Google, the feds have decided in an antitrust case that Google illegally maintains monopoly over the internet. A judge rules. So basically, like I mentioned, Google. It was discovered that Google was paying companies, not just Apple, but a bunch of companies, a ton of money to maintain their prominence or to continue to be the default for certain browsers. It's like
Mhm.
Safari, like I think Nvidia. That's they pay. Let me read some of these um, companies that Apple was paying. Let me read the thing. A judge on Monday
Okay.
ruled that Google's ubiquitous search engine has been illegally exploiting its dominance to squash competition and stifle innovation, a seismic decision that could shake up the internet and hobble one of the world's best known companies. The highly anticipated decision issued by U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta comes nearly a year after the start of the trial pitting U.S. Justice Department against Google in the country's biggest antitrust showdown in a quarter of century. After
Mm.
reviewing reams of evidence that included testimony from top executives at Google, Microsoft, and Apple, like I mentioned, during the last year's 10-week trial, Meta issued his potentially market shifting decision 3 months after the two sides presented their closing arguments in May. Let me see. Google enjoys a 89.2% share of the market for general search services, which increases to 94.9% on mobile devices. So I don't technically know what a monopoly is, but 94% of market share on mobile devices. Uh, Google had its good run while it did.
Yeah.
Now, what
And
they
it's
have to go
also
ahead.
and it's also one of the things where it's one thing if your product is the product of choice and people are using it. But it's another thing if you're making it difficult for other
Mhm.
people to
To
do the
compete.
same thing.
Right,
You're actually working against someone if it's
right.
organic and people, because we just talked about it, the default term for
Mhm,
searching anything is Googling. And
mhm.
so they already had the large market share, but they kind of kicked it up a notch and were actively preventing other people from competing. That's
Right.
basically, I don't know if you saw the Olympics, but there was I think it was the 5,000 meter. The
Mhm,
runners were running and one of the it's for the women's, I think one of the I don't want to mix up the countries. It was between Kenya and Ethiopia. One of
mhm,
them bumped into the other one and tried to
mhm,
kind of knock her off the track. And then the one that bumped her, she
mhm.
was like kind of, trying to get her space in. It's like you're actively trying to
Right,
push somebody out of the way. And
right,
what you can't do is that. You can't actively, try and knock somebody down. If you're
right,
running the race and you're winning it on your own merit, fine. But you can't, kick somebody or knock them off the track to say, "Oh, I won." No,
right,
that's not how
right.
it worked.
And in Google's case, they were, pushing proverbially by offering companies so much money that no
They
other
couldn't
company
say
could compete.
no.
Right, right. Like we mentioned in the other show, I mean, in the other segment, Microsoft would have had to pay 133% over what Google was offering Apple just to break even as far as ad revenue, all the benefits that come with being um the default search engine for mobile devices for browsers and things of that nature. Google has so much of a hold on ad share, ad revenue that Microsoft would have had to pay 133% more. And if I'm Microsoft, I'm like, man, I can't, it doesn't behoove me to
Yeah,
not waste, to spend that much money to remain competitive with Google. And they already are 5 steps ahead, So it's like, all right, we out. So I guess the
yeah,
judge saw that as a stifling competition, so therefore they noted that that was an antitrust. So I'm curious as to, I'm trying to see what happens. Is it just a fine? Does Google have to break up or do they have to, hold on? If Meta, which is the judge, decides to limit or ban Google's default search deals, it could squeeze Apple's profits too. Although parts of this decision were redacted to protect confidential business information, Meta noted the judge noted that Google paid Apple an estimated 20 billion in 2022, doubling from 2020. Judge also noted that Apple has periodically considered building its own search technology, but backed off after a 2018 analysis estimated that the company would lose more than 12 billion in revenue during the first 5 years after a breakup with Google. So even Apple was like, we can't even compete with Google cuz we're going to lose 12 billion per year for the next 5 years in order to catch up, in order to move Google out of the way as a default. So it's like, well, I would rather take all of Google's money
hmm,
than quote unquote invest or waste all of my money to keep up. So even
yeah.
Apple couldn't even compete with Google. So it's just like, yeah, if you can't compete at all, then yeah, eventually somebody's gonna try to break you up.
Yeah, and it sounds like they aren't actually going to break the company up. They're going to break up the deals
Right.
that they
Okay. Got it.
have.
Got it. So that's what they're
That's what
gonna
it
do.
seems like to me. They're going to
Okay.
break up the deals. But I don't know how you can go in and tell a private company who's made a deal with another private company that you can't have a deal together. I don't know how that's going to work.
Well, technically speaking, Google and Apple aren't private companies because they are
They're
publicly
publicly
traded.
traded.
Right. So they
Yeah.
got shareholders, they got board of directors, they've got regulations. Now, if
Yeah.
you like straight up private and you're not even listed on the you're not
Stock exchange.
yeah, listed on stock exchange, you're not providing giving people the opportunity to buy a share of your company and you are for
Mhm.
legit private. No, they can't tell you how to do nothing. But since you're a publicly traded company, you offer options and stocks to individual shareholders. That means you got to have a board of directors. That means you are subject to some sort of regulation, which is what Google and Apple are coming up to. So, like you mentioned,
So
if the
weren't they
judge,
gonna say, well, you can only have a $1 trillion
right,
agreement instead of
is
three?
right. I guess they'll have to deal with it.
That's
I'm surprised
interesting.
Google didn't see this coming, even though they fought it. I would have. Yeah, you fight the lawsuit, but at the same time, it's like, all right, well, what if this don't work? What's
Right.
plan B?
What's our
You know,
contingency plan?
right,
Do we
right,
have
right.
one?
Yeah, I don't think they had one. All right, so that is going to do it for second string. We're going to move into for the culture. It looks like Don Lemon is suing X as a result of that failed Don Lemon show that was supposed to be the first of its kind to air on X. So I don't know if you remember, but Don Lemon was supposed to come up with this Don Lemon show after he was, I guess, unceremoniously removed from CNN. He
Mhm.
went over to Elon Musk. I mean, we know who Elon Musk is. I'm assuming Don Lemon and his people knew who Elon Musk is, but they decided to do the deal anyway. The very first show, Don Lemon interviewed Elon Musk, and to Don Lemon's credit, he was like, "Yeah, you may be my boss, or you may be the one signing the paycheck, but you going
You
you
will
gonna take
answer
this
these questions.
you're gonna answer these questions." And in typical Elon Musk fashion, I guess he couldn't
Temper
take the
tantrum.
heat. Yeah,
Yeah.
he couldn't take the heat. So after that first episode, Elon Musk pulled the plug on the Don Lemon show. Now, Don Lemon has since started his own show on YouTube, I think it is, and he's got a nice amount of viewership, subscriptions, likes,
He's a
things of that
very
nature.
well-known news guy. So, yeah.
Right. So going forward, he decided, all right, um, I'm going to sue X and Elon because they, breach a contract is what he's looking at. The lawsuit alleges Musk and X had used Lemon's name to stir up interest from advertisers and then scrapped the deal a week before the show's premiere. Don
Mhm.
Lemon claims he incurred hundreds of thousands of dollars in expenses while preparing for the program and was never compensated for his work. Lemon is accusing the defendants of fraud, negligent misrepresentation, breach of express contract, and misappropriation of Don Lemon's name and likeness, according to CBS News. Lemon is seeking $35 million. So what say you? Does Don Lemon win? Does it sounds like, from what I understood, Don Lemon is not suing for money lost while doing the show. He is suing for the charges and the expenses leading up to the show. So does that hold water in court? What say you?
I think so. I think he'll probably win.
Hmm.
Because you don't just pull a show out of your butt. I mean,
Right,
you plan, you come up with segments, you come in
right,
with graphics, you hire people, you
right.
you know plan out. This was his first show. You just don't do a show at a time.
Hmm.
You plan ahead. There's some legwork, there's some run up to actually putting on a production like this. Even with our small production, there's stuff that we have to do to lead up to this. And so that's out of pocket. That's effort. That's
Right,
work.
right,
That's
right,
your time.
right.
And
And just
someone like him who is a well-known, well-respected hard news journalist guy coming from one of the biggest news organizations, and he's been on other networks as well. His name does carry weight. He
mhm,
did do work up front. I think the only thing will be is if he can prove how he got to this number. If he
right,
can say, I spent X amount of time doing this, my time is worth X amount of dollars and I spent X amount of time. I had to get this X amount of materials, hire X amount of a people. If he can itemize, his cost, I
Hmm.
think he can win because you can't just say I have a agreement with you because Don Lemon is again a smart guy. The way he kind of got booted out of
CNN.
CNN, I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure the contract that he made sure he had with X Twitter, I'm sure he had some contingency in there to protect him as well. And you just can't go into a contract with someone and then decide to pull the plug because they were mean to you or
Right.
they asked you questions you didn't like or they hurt your feelings. That's not how this thing works. So I
And
think he'll probably win.
He got paid from CNN. I just read this other story. Don Lemon reportedly paid 24.5 million settlement after
Mhm.
being fired from CNN. So fast forward to Twitter and X. Now he's asking for 35 million from X and Elon Musk. The filing states in the X case, Lemon was guaranteed 1.5 million in the first year for the talk show, as well as a percentage of the advertising revenue earned and extra payments for follower growth. Lemon said he was told, that's the
Mhm.
important, to me, that's the
Did he get
important
it in
thing.
writing?
Right. Lemon said he was told that the deal would be good for 12 months as long as he, quote, agreed to provide the defendants, Elon and X, exclusive rights to specific video content for a 24-hour period before it would be dispersed to other platforms. One piece of long form video content, and then 10 pieces of short form video content per month. So if Don Lemon did all these things, they would give him 1.5 million for the first year and a percentage of the advertising revenue and extra payments for if they actually grew the channel. So by, I guess, according to Don Lemon, that since Elon Musk canceled the deal, that he's still good for this money that they told him. So that's my thing.
So
It
it's
makes sense. It makes sense that Don Lemon was sued for this, but again, he was told that he would get this deal and the deal would be good for X, Y, and Z if he ABC. Was he
so it's
told
almost
that? Yeah. Was he told that? Was it a contract? Was it written?
so I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't have it in writing, especially he knows who he was dealing with. So
Right. Right.
this can't be too much of a shocker. But the other thing is, um, there is oh shoot, what's the word? I just had it. Um, a verbal contract or
Mhm.
what's the word I'm looking for? I literally just had it in my head. Um, a reasonable expectation that you have like an oral agreement. There is legal precedence for that. I don't know how
Mhm.
you prove that. I don't know if it's through email conversations, whether it's not in writing specifically where you sign something. If you're having negotiations or a conversation with people going back and forth, you could use those emails. But there is, handshake agreements. That's what I'm trying to think. That's the word I was using. There are such things as handshake agreements that
Mhm.
um have legal standing in the court. So yeah, I think he'll win. He may not get 35 million,
Mhm.
but he did get 25 out of
CNN.
CNN.
Right.
But I think it'll probably come down to Twitter does not have any money. They are hemorrhaging money, they're losing money,
Right.
they're not making money. And just yesterday, the president of Twitter announced they were suing a contingent of advertisers because they are saying that because these advertisers decided to boycott Twitter, they're
Mhm.
trying to say that that's illegal. It's not illegal to boycott something.
Right.
So they are going after this consortium of advertisers who decided that they weren't going to advertise on Twitter anymore. And I think this is probably around when he really let um,
This use
racism,
of
misogyny, anti-Semitism really run rampant on the platform.
Mhm.
And he was just out here just being wildly, inappropriate
Mhm.
and allowing wildly inappropriate things to come. People's like, whoa, we don't want to put our name on this, because you remember when they took the verification away, and you weren't going to get it unless you paid X amount of dollars, and you were going to get it. And they had the gold checks, and they had the blue checks, and they had black checks, and they had all these different things. People and companies were like, we don't want to advertise on here because we can't verify ourselves. Anybody can
Right.
get our handle and try and swindle people, and then we could possibly be on the hook for stuff. So it's one of those things where I don't know if they have the money to even pay this out. Could they
Right.
afford it?
Right. Maybe, possibly, I don't know. You bring up a good point that Twitter is got all kinds of other problems, and the
Lots of
last thing they
problems.
need is to shell out any money, let alone, if not 35 million, let's just say 20 million. They, the judge says, they ain't guarantee you that much. You only get 20 million. I don't know if maybe they've got it, but I'm assuming the shareholders who are looking at Twitter and X is like, yo, y'all are shelling out money. Y'all supposed to be making us money. The advertisers are leaving. You're getting caught up in frivolous lawsuits because Elon Musk can't control himself, So eventually, maybe that's what Elon Musk wants. He wants no more. He wants nothing to do with Twitter. So he is
Yeah.
sabotaging this thing so they will take it from him
He's
so he
like,
can write
please free me from this demon.
right.
I hate it. But you want
So he can
because
write
you
off
want
that 40.
to control the narrative.
Yeah, so he can write off that 40 million or 40 billion, however much he was the cost that he cost for Twitter.
40,
So he
40 billion, yeah.
yeah, so he can write that off and go on
Even
about
though it
whatever.
wasn't actually his money, he got it from investors, which is
Yeah,
wild.
which is probably why he's trying to tank it so he can get to them some of their money back via a
Right.
write-off so they can write it off as
Yeah.
a failed thing, which is crazy. They gave him all that money knowing who he is. But
Knowing who he is.
maybe he sold them some
Of
some
He's a smooth talker. I
yeah,
mean,
apparently.
look at the way
Apparently.
these Tesla cars are made.
Yep.
That it was pitched as this one thing, and then people get them and they're just not very well made cars.
Yeah,
So yeah.
and um it's unfair because the people who work at Tesla, the people who work at Twitter slash X,
Hmm.
they probably really
They're gonna be
working
the ones that
very
suffer.
and they've been working very hard in spite of the stuff that's coming
Him
out of
working
Elon Musk.
against them
eh,
directly on both ventures, Twitter
agr-
and Tesla.
Right, and they won't get rewarded for it because, maybe Twitter will go on, but it
Yeah,
won't go on without Elon Musk. Maybe
yeah,
Tesla gets better, but people are already starting to push against how expensive electric
yeah,
cars are, and they are not selling like they used to. And Tesla's stock price is showing that. So he may get kicked out of both Twitter and Tesla if he
right.
don't turn this thing around.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so that
Oh,
is yeah, that's gonna do it for the culture. We're gonna move into the hookup. This hookup is for all of my Apple users who frequently are trying to get past those CAPTCHAs. If you don't know what CAPTCHAs are, once you sign into a website or you authenticate who you are with a website, they give you that picture box and you have to click all the boxes that
I
have
am
the
not a
stoplights.
robot. The
Right.
robot is asking you, "Are you a robot?"
Right. And then you have to click those pictures that, pick all the crosswalks or pick all the motorcycles and pick all the buses. You got to go through that a
uh,
couple times. And you've got that one picture, that one little piece
it's
that's
on the
on the
edge.
line. It's
Yeah,
like, is that in the picture or not?
or not. Yeah,
So instead of doing all that, Apple has this new setting, not this new setting, but this setting that nobody's really talked about to where it'll automatically let you bypass those CAPTCHAs. And the way you do it is you open the iPhone settings app, you go to your Apple ID, you tap on sign in and security, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and under advanced, turn on automatic verification. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to say, all right, I trust this device. I trust this a
mhm,
real person. I trust this is not a robot. So based on that handshake, we're going to let you go ahead and go into the website without actually having to do that CAPTCHA thing. Now, keep in mind, this won't work on every website as the website itself has to be up to date to support automatic verification. But if it is, and you turn on the feature, the automatic verification, you should be able to bypass a lot of those CAPTCHA websites. Now, I still get them, so I'm
Mhm.
assuming those websites haven't been updated, but I would have to start paying a little bit more attention to maybe even run a test to where
Mhm.
if I try to sign into a website using Safari versus trying to sign into a website using Chrome or Firefox or whatever the case may be, how many more captures do I get by signing on by not using Safari
Mhm.
versus turning it on? But I haven't really noticed it because I still get them. But
Mhm.
I can say maybe they're few and far between, but I notice it when I get it. I never notice it when I don't get it.
So is this only for iOS or is this across the ecosystem?
I
Mac
think it's
OS,
across the
iPad
I
OS? Okay,
I
nice.
I think it's across the ecosystem. I keep saying iPhone and Safari, but I think as long as you sign into your Apple ID
Mm.
and then turn on this automatic verification, I think it works across all devices. But I'll have to double check on that and get back with
May
you.
have to try that out.
Yep. All right, so that's going to do it for the hookup. And Nika, if you don't have anything else, that is going to do it for the show. So tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere.
And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH. To connect with the show, to comment, to share, and support the show, please go to our website. Go to snoboscast.com. Get all that information, get all the details. Until next week, though, we are out. Peace.
Bye, everybody.